My guest today is Mario Pazos. Mario is the marketing lead at Goat Network, which is, I think, the first Bitcoin layer 2 to offer a sustainable Bitcoin yield. Very interesting. Welcome to the show, Mario.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here, Mario. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. Be great if you could please introduce yourself. Love to hear some of your personal and professional backstory. What is the life path that has led you to get involved with the team at Goat Network?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so I've been in business for the past 20 years. The first 12, I was in the corporate world in companies like Microsoft, Sony, Citibank, Mastercard, always running different P&L, mostly for the Latin American region. I'm actually based here out of Miami. And then in the last 8, I started my crypto journey. I stumbled into Bitcoin in 2016. And ever since then on, I fell completely and absolutely enamored with the asset class, and particularly with Bitcoin. Fast forward in the last 8, what I've been doing is investing in space, trying to accumulate and hodl as much Bitcoin as I can. And now I find myself with the great opportunity of joining a team that happens to be in the Bitcoin space that I think has a very interesting value proposition. And I'm happy to share with you what network is all about.
Excellent. Well, I think it's probably time that we did exactly that, Mario. So, yeah, Goat Network, which is an interesting name, by the way. I'm sure there's a thesis behind the name. Let's do that first, because even like the Goat Network and the brand, the logo, the symbol, is actually a goat proudly up on top of a mountain. So, yeah, what's the thinking there?
It's exactly, to get reactions like the one that you've had, right? I mean, we're trying to be playful with the goat, both as a kind of meme animal that is very attractive in itself, but also what goats stand for, which is usually like written full time. It's indeed a big statement, but we're trying to live up to the promise. And once I walk you through what the network does, hopefully we can achieve that. But the whole idea there is just making sure that we can be a little bit, what can I say, attract people's attention on what we're trying to bring to market. There's so many projects out there that it's difficult to stand out. So we decided to be a little bit bold with a big claim just to make sure that we can grab people's attention, and then explain why I said that we feel very confident that our network will be actually very interesting.
Yep. All right. Makes sense to me. Goat Network, certainly a memorable name, rolls off the tongue. And it's Goat Network. Hey, does what it says. I like it. All right. Goat Network then, Mario, what is the Goat Network? So I know there's quite a bit going on, but give us the kind of the high level vision of what you guys are building here.
Let me give you first a brief background of what's the genesis of the Goat Network, and I'll start first
please.
with a brief story of my journey and the journey of many Bitcoiners out there. Right, once you adopt Bitcoin and understand what it is, I think most people tend to gravitate towards Bitcoin as the standard, right? As a unit of account. And I consider Bitcoin a store of value. And for me, 1 Bitcoin equates 1 Bitcoin. So even though its value might be growing in fiat terms, let's say in dollar terms, the reality is that the currency itself is devalued against the asset. So to me, 1 Bitcoin is 1 Bitcoin, whether it's at $5, 10,000, 15,000, 100,000, or a million. So my goal as a Bitcoiner is to try to accumulate as much Bitcoin as I can, as I told you at the very beginning of this conversation. So what we're trying to do with Goat Network is to offer Bitcoiners like myself the opportunity to achieve just that. If today I were to want to, let's say, organically create or accumulate more Bitcoin, my alternative is to essentially become a Bitcoin miner. But it's essentially extremely expensive and capital intensive to open up a profitable Bitcoin mining operation. So that's kind of the challenge that we see currently in the space. And our objective is to make sure that we can offer, as you clearly pointed out at the beginning, sustainable yield in Bitcoin terms. So Goat Network's value proposition or goal is essentially that, to be the first Bitcoin layer 2 that offers sustainable yield for Bitcoiners of any size, small, big, medium, people that have embraced the Bitcoin standard and actually want to try to generate yield in Bitcoin terms. I can walk you through exactly how it is that we can try to fulfill that promise, but essentially that's what it is. We're trying to help investors of any size to be able to get exposure to an asset class that we think is going to be the future, and hopefully one day the new monetary system for the world, and in doing so, trying to accumulate more of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just to, yeah, I guess frame that even further, Mario's, the idea is obviously there are a lot of Bitcoiners all around the world. Everyone understands that Bitcoin is digital gold, and most Bitcoiners have a certain level of conviction. They're hodlers, they're holders, and they're willing to hold for, pathologically long periods of time through the bear markets, through the bull markets, which is great because if you have that level of conviction that Bitcoin price appreciation is going to improve over the long term, then Bitcoin is a great bet to have. However, the one problem, I suppose, is that it's a passive asset, and that the critics of Bitcoin would say, well, it's a digital pet rock. It just sits there and it doesn't do anything. You can't earn extra yield on it. So I guess this is one of that in a nutshell is the problem that teams such as yourself are trying to solve. And there's different ways of talking about it, Bitcoin, DeFi, things like that as well, right, Mario?
That is absolutely right. I mean, I think Bitcoin has, in the past 15 years, established a very strong narrative as a store of value, as digital gold, as you clearly pointed out. And that in itself is extremely powerful, right? I mean, as I said, I'm a Bitcoin holder. To me, holding Bitcoin in itself is a hedge against inflation. It's an asset that I want to hold for generations to come, one that I like to transfer my kids and my grandkids. That in itself is absolutely amazing. I just think that we're getting into an inflection point into Bitcoin can actually be seen as much more than that, not just as a store of value, but also as a network. And we can talk about that, in a bit. And then when you finally really understand what you have at hand, understand that Bitcoin is sound money, then the next step is, okay, how can I accumulate more? Because at the end of the day, as I said, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. So the idea is to create more Bitcoin, not necessarily more value in fiat terms. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The value proposition of Bitcoin, and I have to thank the Bitcoiners out there that are watching this show. I've done a phenomenal job placing it in people's mind as a store of value, and that is fantastic. But I think we can do so much more with it. And I think that we are in that inflection point in which we can finally bring a solution to market to achieve what I just described.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, Mario, is I think you're exactly right in identifying the idea that there are, countless thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Bitcoiners around the world who are sitting on their stack of Bitcoin. They do believe in it. They want to hold it, but they'll be very, very, very open to opportunities to earn yield or do something with that Bitcoin. But as you'll be very aware, Mario, Bitcoiners are famously trust averse, right? We're taught not to to verify, not to trust, and the history of crypto, unfortunately, is littered with examples of broken trust. So there's no way people are just going to give their Bitcoin over to some other centralized authority without, a high degree of skepticism. So I guess that's kind of one of the problems. So how do you approach something like that, people's security concerns and so on?
So first of all, I want to celebrate that ethos that Bitcoiners have that are being skeptical. I consider myself also very skeptical. We're taught to actually verify and not necessarily, trust. It's actually a process of trust and verify. So let me explain a little bit about how is it that we're going to try to solve this issue. And I think it's important because it's by no means a centralized solution, quite the opposite. So let's start with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is the most decentralized secure network in human history. And it's absolutely fantastic as it works already. I don't think for the store of value use case, there should be much changes to be made in the layer one. That is Bitcoin as a network. But the truth is that if we want to bring other use cases like potentially borrowing, lending, DeFi, NFTs, and the like, it's very difficult to do and achieve that in the layer one. And as a result of that, I think it's already a kind of common consensus that for Bitcoin to scale as a network and therefore bring other use cases, we need to work on Bitcoin layer twos, right? That can actually bring that security to decentralization so that we can explore other use cases. That's pretty much what we're trying to do. Now, the difference between us and most of the other solutions out there, and by the way, there are many projects that are trying to tackle this issue, is exactly what you just mentioned, right? Centralization. So when you're running Bitcoin layer 2, the way it works is you usually have a validator, call it a node, that validates transactions and rolls them up that they later on, get settled in the layer one. That's more or less how most of the solutions are actually working out there. What we are bringing to the market, and this is actually our unique selling proposition, is that we're going to be the first decentralized sequencer node network in the world, which means that instead of starting just with one validator, we're going to start with 7. And what that essentially brings is 2 factors, very important factors. First, decentralization. Once you bridge your Bitcoin to our network, you're not going to have to be dependent upon just one single party to validate transactions, but actually 7 to start with and later on hundreds. And then second, and definitely not last, but not less important, I will say, is security. As a result of having more than one node validator, you don't face the risk of potentially in the future a third party, right, being able to shut down a node and then your network, becomes non-operational. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to respect and bring the ethos of decentralization of security, the layer 1 into layer 2, because it doesn't make any sense for Bitcoiners to sacrifice the value that we all see and that we all appreciate on having Bitcoin being so decentralized and so secure. So the most important thing that I want to highlight about this point is that it also brings a third component, which I think is very interesting. In the model that I described, others are bringing to market, the sequencer nodes, being that it's just one of them, is a monopoly. It's centralized and it's usually run by the foundation that manages and runs that particular network. In our model, we're going to allow a free market of decentralized sequencers so that people can actually start sharing the revenue generated by these sequencers. So let me explain you how this works. Let's say Andy wants to bridge its BTC into our network. Well, you're going to be able to bridge it and wrap it in a version that we call Goat BTC, but essentially it's going to be at 1-to-1. And then when you want to conduct transactions into the network, those transactions generate gas fees, right, that you have to pay so that the validators can actually validate those transactions. Those gas fees are actually revenue earned by the validator. But if, let's say, you were to lock your BTC in any of these validators, you can actually revenue share those gas fees. So that, for example, the validator might keep, call it 20% of the gas fee revenue, and the 80% remaining goes to the people that are locking their BTC to secure the network. That's how we actually are able to generate sustainable yield, because it's coming from the actual transactability of the network that by itself and by definition is going to be decentralized. So hopefully, to answer your question, with time, Bitcoiners are going to start feeling more comfortable. This is going to come with time, right? That the network indeed is secure, is by definition decentralized, and by definition different from any other Bitcoin layer 2. And in addition to that, it allows to have the ability for people to share their revenue, and as a result of that, being able to make it sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing, Mario. I think you identified it yourself when you said, this is going to take time, because it will take time, because even on, like, let's just say Ethereum DeFi, the DeFi power users are quite a small set of the crypto natives, a small set of crypto holders, and it will be the same for Bitcoin. A lot of people that are holding Bitcoin, they like that because it is just a kind of set and forget investment play. But for them to want to bridge their Bitcoin and lock up Bitcoin, you need to make it as easy and seamless as possible. And of course, they need to be able to trust that nothing's going to go wrong. So there's a few challenges probably there, Mario.
For sure. One thing that actually gives us a lot of excitement is, I'm sure you're aware of this, wrapped version of BTC are already in market. They came about around 2021. The most relevant that I can bring to the conversation is WBTC. There's currently around $9 billion TVL in the WBTC. And what that tells me is that there is an appetite out there, not for every Bitcoiner, but for those that are have a little bit of more of a risk appetite to start conducting DeFi within the Ethereum world with Bitcoin as a collateral, right? So I think that gives us a good idea or a good insight that there's an appetite to be able to conduct similar transactions with BTC, but on top of the Bitcoin network, which by definition, it's more secure and more decentralized than any other network in the world, including Ethereum and others. So that to me, it's a very clear sign that there's an appetite for people to actually try to look for yield in BTC, as it should, because essentially it's money. But the reason why I think it's going to take some time is not necessarily because we're not starting to see these use cases, but because Bitcoiners are skeptical, right? And we're coming to market. Our test is going to be next month, and then the month after we're going to have mainnet. So we need to prove the fact that the network is going to indeed be secure and centralized, and it's going to function as we're telling, and we're going to show people that it does. So all I think is that when people realize what we're bringing to market and finally understand that they can actually generate yield, right, from all these transactions, they're going to get excited the same way I got excited, because what happens is that most of the network out there, right, are trying to generate this economic model in which they reward the node validators with tokens, right? In our case, we're gonna reward them with actual money, which is BTC. Why? Because the wrap version of BTC will be the one powering the network. So it might take some time for people to really digest this message and understand what I'm saying. But once they do and the message, resonates and sinks in, they're going to see an enormous opportunity of making Bitcoin with Bitcoin by locking Bitcoin for Bitcoiners.
Well, I think you're exactly right there, Mario, in terms of identifying that, if people can see that there is an attractive yield on offer, yeah, you'd be surprised at how, or not surprised at how motivating a factor that is. That is just how human psychology works. If anyone, and especially, if you offer people the opportunity to earn more Bitcoin via their Bitcoin, yeah, I mean, people will jump at that. Just in terms of that yield, can you give us a sense of any idea like what that yield will actually look like? Any information there, Mario?
Yeah, it wouldn't be prudent for me to share any potential yield return, mostly from a compliance point of view. So I don't want to promise anything, but I do want to say that there's going to be a balance between risk reward. So it becomes attractive for people to want to bridge their assets, lock them in, and gain return in Bitcoin in return. Let's say that we think, and by the way, I think it's important for me to take this as a segue. Our team is a very solid team, and the economic model that I'm describing to you has been designed by a PhD from the University of Toronto. And we feel very confident that we can actually have a sustainable yield model as long as we have a certain transaction volume that we're going after. And if you want, we can talk about that. So I think it's going to be attractive enough for people to want to, do their risk reward analysis and venture into bridging their BTC to earn more. But I would prefer not to give any numbers just so that we're fully compliant. We don't overpromise into anything to your audience.
Of course, I understand a very, very sensible approach, Mario. Tell us in terms of, the product journey for Goat Network, if you like. Where are we at the moment? I believe you guys launched a test net in August. Is that the case?
So the team has been building the technology that is behind this layer 2 called CKM or rollups on top of Bitcoin since, I will say, November last year when we closed our pre-seed round. Testnet will be indeed this month. We're launching next week. And mainnet will be in October, so next month. And then TGE will be around January next year, more or less.
So it's a token generation event, January next year?
Yeah, so one thing that I didn't mention that I would like to mention is the system, right? The token that powers the network is BTC,
yes,
right? The wrap version of it. But in addition to allowing people to earn rewards in BTC, we're trying to, bring to market a token model in which we can boost the rewards furthermore, in which we can use this token model for governance, in which we can actually use this token model to incentivize new players to come into our network and build the ecosystem. And that's what we like to call GOAT. So if, for example, you want to become someone locking in your BTC, one of the sequencer nodes, you can earn rewards in BTC, call it a day, move on, that's it. But if you want to enhance your rewards, you could potentially also lock in GOAT, and that will give you an additional return on your investment. Or you could potentially just lock your BTC and call it a day. But we actually believe that this governance model is very functional to be able to have a thriving ecosystem. And the team actually has done a project very similar to this one in the past, but actually on top of Ethereum. The team developed a very successful Ethereum layer 2. And they actually proved the fact that this reward token or governance token is actually very good to incentivize a flourishing ecosystem.
Yeah,
and that will be January this year.
Yes, gotcha. And for people that are interested in kind of getting into the weeds, if you like, in terms of how the GOAT economic model works, there is on your website, Mario, it's called the GOAT Network Economics Beige Paper, which goes deep into how all how the economic system works, how the yield is generated, how the system sustains itself, and so on, Mario.
Yeah, no, we're very excited about that base paper. As I mentioned, it was drafted by our chief economist, which happens to be a professor at the University of Toronto. And also our chief innovation officer. It's quite innovative. I will encourage your audience, if you're interested to learn more on how we're doing this. In fact, they should, because to your point, Bitcoiners are very skeptical. So we're trying to make sure that the process becomes smoother because it's highly innovative, and we're true believers that we can actually fulfill upon our promise on sustainable yield.
Awesome. Okay, look, just switching gears just slightly, Mario, love to get your thoughts in terms of just Bitcoin in general. Here we are, September 2024. September traditionally quite a bearish month for Bitcoin, and it's certainly, we had a little bit of a dump to start the month. You see some chatter of hopefully some fireworks in Q4. But after a positive start to the year, it has been a little bit of a grind following the launch of the ETFs. The kind of the VC hype has moved from crypto to generative AI. Just it feels like a lack of interest in crypto as an asset class at the moment, even though the Bitcoin ETFs were very successful from a kind of ETF launch perspective. It just hasn't seemed to be that wave of follow through. Where's the next kind of wave of I don't know, adoption or retail interest or even institutional buyers come from? What are your thoughts on where we are at the moment, Mario?
I feel very bullish in Bitcoin and crypto in the long run. I think we're just going through the traditional cycle in which the first 5 to 6 months after the halving, you tend to have this very boring process in which I think that the whales and the asset managers are trying to bore retail to death so they can get rid of their Bitcoin and buy them cheap. But I do believe that it's just a matter of time for the market to switch and turn very bullish. I think the best is yet to come. I expect that to start happening towards the fourth quarter, call it October of this year, for the next 6 to 9 months. It's what we have seen in the previous past 2 cycles. I still expect that will be the case moving forward. And I think that the catalyst, to be honest with you, it's just human nature. It's the best marketing for the industry is price appreciation. The moment that, we start switching bullish and we see the asset managers starting to acquire furthermore, I think that's the moment in which we're going to start seeing most of retail coming into the industry. And the trigger for that, and why October is interesting, is I believe we're going to start changing the macroeconomic guidance that we have been seeing the past 3 to 4 years, with the Fed essentially tightening interest rates and being very compressive, to having a much looser Fed, just because of the fact that we're starting to see some indicators in which the economy is slowing down, potentially getting into a recession. And that will bring not only, the lower interest rate potentially starting this month, but also the most important thing that drives the market, any financial market, and this is not an exception for Bitcoin, which is the injection of liquidity. So usually what happens when the Fed loosens its policy, it's actually it breaks liquidity. We're starting to see actually the liquidity chart starting going through the roof and starting to hit all-time highs. Naturally, that is going to bring financial assets appreciation. And in addition to that, as you know, we have a U.S. election coming in the next, I will say, 58 days. That will be an additional trigger. Depending upon who becomes president, we might have an extra boost in terms of how bullish the market can turn. I don't really think that's going to be that much of a variable, but there will be some impact for sure. I'm not going to mention names. I know you're sure it's not political, but it's definitely a factor that we should consider. And yeah, Bitcoin will lead the way. Altcoins will follow. Not all of them will make it, but some of them, the high quality ones, are going to do absolutely fantastic.
Very well said, Mario. Very well said. And well, if you're right, fireworks ahead. So let's just see how it all plays out. Look, as we start to finish off this part of the show, Mario, just again, tell people why they should take notice of the very nicely named Goat Network, and where can people go to keep up to date with developments as the Goat Network starts to roll out, and of course, how can they get hold of that economic beige paper and so on?
So first of all, we want to make sure that we help every single Bitcoiner out there. The truth is that we're living in an inflationary environment. The cost of living is increasing for all of us, regardless of your socioeconomic level. So we are trying to be as welcoming as we can for everyone that wants to get exposure to the asset class, to the point that if, let's say, you have at least 0.001 BTC and want to lock in one of the stakers to generate yield, we're going to welcome people to do so. That's the very minimum. That is actually much more friendly than potentially having to open up a mining operation to generate more Bitcoin. I would like to say that we're working very diligently to have a thriving ecosystem so that we can have the transaction volume that we need to hit, so that the validators that are part of our network generate sufficient returns that they can actually then be transferred to the people locking their BTC in each and every single one of these validators. And then we're very excited. We're very excited because for the first time, we can actually offer a sustainable way for people to make money. Bitcoin is money. And what I can say is that if they want to learn more about the project, the best way to do so is to go to our website, goat.network. You're going to find there all our resources, our page paper, our white paper. You're going to see our team that is fully doxed. Of course, we have socials. You're going to find them as well. And we're always open to connect with anyone and everyone, whether those are customers, investors, BTC holders, potential partners. We really want to bring to market a ecosystem that can be flourishing and beneficial for everyone. And I think the biggest thing that I want to say is that, once again, I want to be thankful for all the Bitcoiners that have been working and positioning Bitcoin as a store of value for the last 15 years. It changed my life. I'm very thankful for that. But I do think that we're at an inflection point in which Bitcoin can also be seen as a network that actually necessitates scaling, and solutions like ours can help with that, so that we can bring other use cases to Bitcoin, which I think essentially is really decentralized financial market, like we're seeing right now in traditional markets, but this time around within the purview of a blockchain that we can rest assured it's secure, decentralized, permissionless, and trustless.
Awesome. Wonderfully said, Mario. Links are in the show notes, folks. But goat.network is the website. Mario, it is time to close out the show. And we do that, of course, by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
Please, let's do it. Excited.
Let's do it, Mario. I'm just going to run some questions at you. I just want you to give me kind of rapid fire, hot take style answers if you like. Question 1 for you, Mario, is where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I will say that I believe in an interoperable world. And I also believe that Bitcoin is money. And for money as a use case, I consider myself a maximalist. But it's not the only use case that we're going to bring to crypto. And as a result of that, I'm open to an interoperable world.
Yeah, very, very nuanced answer, Mario. Hard to argue with that. I like it. What would you say then is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
I think Bitcoin is going to transition from a store of value into a network. And in my lifetime, a medium of exchange, and hopefully for the better of the world, the new monetary system, and I have full conviction that it's just a matter of time.
I like it. I like it a lot. I hope so too, and I think so too. Bill Gates famously said, Mario, that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10 years. And blockchain is a very long time. But yeah, with that in mind, I guess anything you like here, a Bitcoin Goat Network, a Bitcoin DeFi, what does it all look like in 10 years' time?
I think the world is going to become on-chain. And what I mean by that is, in the first 20 years of this millennia, the world become online. In the next 20, you and I are going to be able to see the world becoming on-chain. And that will be decentralized finance, social finance, game finance, you name it. It's just a matter of time. And we're just in the early innings. The world is not necessarily seeing it yet, but it's going to happen very, very soon.
I like it. William Gibson, sci-fi author, he famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Mario, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
I will say AI agents. I'm actually quite excited about AI agents. I've been experimenting what it means. So for the audience, for those that don't know, today you can actually work with an agent on chain that can help you conduct transactions. Let's say I always say that let me go a little bit further here because it's actually that I'm very passionate. If you want to conduct transactions on chain, it's actually very difficult to do. You need to understand how to open a wallet, how to use a DEX, how to leverage and borrow against it. The technology is very clunky. In the future, we're going to be able to interact with AI agents similar to ChatGPT that is going to be connected to our wallet. And you can say, please help me buy Bitcoin in this exchange, put it in this borrow and lending protocol, borrow against it when the price hits $50,000. And after that, use some stable coins to buy back when the price, decreases to call it $30,000. And all of that will be done programmatically without you having to even interact with any chain. And that exists today. So, what I think is going to happen is that that's just going to permeate in every single aspect of our lives. In the next 10 years, we're not going to have to be conducting transactions. We just need to command with prompts, AI agents doing it for us in a programmatic fashion.
AI agents doing it for us in a programmatic fashion. I like the sound of that. And yeah, I very much agree. That is going to happen much faster than people think. And it brings us kind of nicely, actually, Mario, to our final question, which is, what is your favorite piece of sci-fi? You can go for like a movie, a book, or a TV show. Favorite piece of science fiction?
People are going to hate me on this or debate me, I guess. But to me, The Matrix, it's not sci-fi. It's potentially very close to reality, more than we want to accept. And to me, that's my favorite movie of all times. It says a lot. As a beginner, I think what it shows you is that once you take the orange pill and you see the world under that lens, the world becomes significantly different. And you start seeing that there's a lot of narrative and messages that we have been given, I will say, on a indoctrination fashion, that when you start questioning and challenging, going through that rabbit hole, the world becomes so much brighter and so much more hopeful. I want to just give a message of hope to everyone out there that there is a solution for, the robbery that we're seeing right now with central banking all around the world, and a life raft to be able to opt out of that system. And that is Bitcoin. And we should be thankful about this technology because it happens every 500 years. The same way happened with the printing press or electricity. And I can keep naming names, but it is significant. And I would encourage everyone to put the time to really learn about this, because that's a level of relevance that this technology represents for all of us. And therefore, I'm very hopeful for the future.
Yeah, the Matrix, great selection, Mario. Funnily enough, when sometimes people turn that question back around on me and they say, well, Andy, what's your favorite piece of sci-fi? And my answer, Mario, is always indeed same as you. The first the first Matrix film, which I think it works on so many different levels. Obviously, it's a spectacular action sci-fi movie, but yeah, so influential for our culture. So it brought so many memes. To take the red pill. It popularized, I think, the idea of simulation theory, this idea that we could just be living in a simulation. And of course, yeah, going down the rabbit hole. So there's just, yeah, so much cool stuff come out of that movie. So yeah, great selection, Mario. Thank you for that.
Thank you, man. That's great. I didn't know that was your favorite, but yeah, that's my favorite for sure. I watched it with my kids many, many times. They love it too.
Awesome. Mario, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. Just close it out by, telling people where they can find you online, share your Twitter X handles or wherever else you like to hang out. And again, just shout out, Goat Network. What should people do? Where should they go?
Thank you. Yeah, so my Twitter handle is at Mario Seeking. I'm very active in Twitter. You can find me there. I have the picture of a jaguar. Happens to be my animal spirit. And then with Go Network, once again, I think people should get very excited. Things are starting to, pick up. I think this is one of the moments in which we're finally coming out of stealth. Go to our site, read the white paper, read the page paper, get ready for testnet. There's going to be an incentivized program moving forward for people that actually join our testnet. And then mainly is going in October, and then we're off to the races. So I want to thank you, Andy, for this opportunity. I really do. It has been great. I enjoy working with having this podcast with you, and hopefully we can have another one once we're live, and we can bring some success stories of what we're actually doing I would love to have a follow up with you later on.
Sounds good to me, Mario. Thank you so much. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you, guys.